Hey everyone! Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of Europe's biggest secrets. A hidden innovation engine that's not just changing our future, it's also generating, well, hundreds of billions of dollars in the process. Yeah, you heard that right. Almost $400 billion. That is the staggering combined value of startups that have come straight out of European university research. And look, this isn't just some side project for a few professors. This is a full-blown, quiet revolution happening inside the walls of academia. So, you're probably asking, what is this hidden engine? How on earth are we turning lab coats and piles of research papers into these world-changing billion-dollar companies? Well, let's dive in and find out. All right, first up, to really get a handle on this academic gold rush, we've got to zoom out and look at the big picture. What are these companies? What are they building? And just how big of a deal is this, really? Okay. First things first, let's get our terms straight. You're going to hear the word spinout a lot. All it means is a company that's born from research done at a university. Think of it like a bridge, right? It takes a brilliant idea from the lab and actually turns it into something you can use in the real world. Now, a huge piece of this puzzle is what we call deep tech. And let's be clear, we are not talking about another social media app here. No way. These are companies built on some seriously groundbreaking science and engineering. They're the ones trying to solve the biggest problems out there. Things like climate change, new energy, you name it. And the other side of that coin, that's life sciences. This is where you see incredible new cancer therapies, AI that can discover new drugs faster than ever before, next-gen medical tech. Basically, it's all about science that's laser-focused on making us healthier. And look, this is so much more than just big, flashy numbers on a spreadsheet. This whole engine is creating real jobs. We're talking over 167,000 high-skilled jobs across Europe that have been created by these spinouts. And that number? It's growing, and it's growing fast. Okay, but what's truly mind-blowing is the speed of this growth. Just think about this. 10 years ago, the total value of all these companies was about $58 billion. Today, it's knocking on the door of $400 billion. That's a 7x increase. It's just a crystal clear sign that this whole ecosystem is exploding. And it's not just growing, the pace is actually picking up. Get this, almost 40% of the entire value we're talking about has been created in just the last 10 years. The momentum is real. It's like a giant flywheel that's just spinning faster and faster. So, okay, we've established this is a huge accelerating trend. But the big question is, where is all this value actually coming from? Let's dig into the universities and countries that are really leading the pack here. Right, so we've covered the what. Now it's time for the who. Who are the power players? Which universities are the real titans, turning academic ideas into industrial giants? I think some of these names might just surprise you. Okay, here we go. It's probably no shock that the UK is all over the top of this list. You've got Oxford at number 1, Cambridge right behind at number 2. But hold on, look closely. Switzerland is an absolute powerhouse. You've got ETH Zurich and EPFL Lausanne right up there in the top 4. And then Germany's TU Munich slides in to round out a really, really strong top 5. This is where it gets really interesting, because when you look at it by country, it's a tale of two different metrics. If you just look at the raw total value created, yeah, the big players, the UK, Germany, France, they lead the way. But if you adjust for population size, value per person, a totally different story emerges. Switzerland is the undisputed champ here, just punching way, way above its weight. And right behind them are the Nordic countries, Denmark and Sweden. All right, so now we know who the players are. The next logical step? Let's follow the money. How do these brilliant ideas actually get funded? Who's writing the checks? And what's the end game for these companies? And let me tell you, the investment scene is absolutely on fire. We're looking at venture capital funding for these spinouts hitting over $9 billion this year alone. To put that in perspective, that's double what it was back in 2019, before the pandemic. And this is happening even while the rest of the VC market has kind of cooled off. That tells you everything you need to know about investor confidence here. So, in the beginning stages, Europe is actually really, really good at funding its own innovations. A whopping 86% of that early stage money comes from investors right here in Europe. The continent is basically planting the seeds for its own future success. But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. As these companies get bigger and they need those huge checks to go global, Europe starts to fall behind. Almost half of the later stage funding comes from outside Europe. And guess who's writing most of those checks? Yep, investors from the US, providing 42% of the cash. The analogy here is perfect. Europe is fantastic at planting the seeds, but way too often, someone else comes along to buy the harvest. This brings us to the exit, which is just a fancy way of saying when the company gets sold. And yeah, you guessed it, a lot of Europe's brightest stars end up getting bought by international giants. US companies in particular have shelled out almost $24 billion since 2019 just to acquire these European spinouts. I mean, take a look at the story of RS Biotech. It's a perfect example. This company was a spin-out from ETH Zurich, one of the best universities we talked about. It started with incredible science in a Swiss lab, it got local support to grow, and then it had a huge exit, getting acquired by a global pharma giant. It's a massive success story, for sure, but it also really drives home how global this whole game is. So, where does this all leave us? What's the takeaway for the future? We've seen the absolutely incredible potential here. So now the question becomes, how can Europe take this momentum and really turn this hidden engine into a global force to be reckoned with? Well, the good news is there's a pretty clear game plan. It boils down to three key things. First, you've got to standardize how deals get done. Make it faster and fairer so founders aren't tied up in red tape. Second, we need to rethink what success even means. It's not about counting how many companies get started. It's about measuring the real long-term value they create. And finally, you have to pump more money into the system at the two most critical points, right at the very beginning to see if an idea even works, and then much later on to help the successful ones become global giants. And at the end of the day, this isn't just about money. This is about Europe's future. If Europe can get this right, if it can turn all this academic brainpower into strong, independent companies, it has a massive opportunity to secure its own technological future, to actually lead the world in the next wave of innovation. Which brings us right back to the big $400 billion question. Can Europe solve this late-stage funding problem? Can it truly capitalize on its academic brilliance and build its own next generation of global tech giants? The potential is absolutely there. It's enormous. But make no mistake, the race is on.